Okay, so good morning. Here we are, back our second class after Tishrei, and we're in chapter 3. And I'll just give you a short summary of where we are a little bit. Last week we went over paragraphs 1 and 2. And today we're going to look at paragraph 4, which really covers the theme of paragraph 2 as well. And what I'm realizing for the first time, really, and Mila, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I'm seeing, that the whole of chapter 1, Reb Hillel was teaching us about the process of Iyun in a general way, how it works, how you go from, the left Bina brain to where you're analyzing the words of the teacher and you work your way up to Chokhmah, where you get more of a refined revelation of the essence of what the teacher is trying to say. And then eventually you get to the place where you're drawing new information from the Koach HaMaskil, kind of really outside of the system of the brains, physical brains as we know it. And in chapter 1, he shows us how we get connected to Chokhmah and Bina. And then in chapter 2, how that Iyun process also connects us to the emotions, the midot of Chokhmah and Bina. And it's very detailed, and it's really amazing to learn that process. Certainly it was for me. And then he comes along in chapter 3, and I suddenly realized that in some ways he was giving us a very general experience of Iyun, meaning that Iyun formula you can use for anything. That's how the brain works when you're learning about anything. It could be for science, it could be any topic that you're learning. And now in chapter 3, he says, now I'm going to show you how that system works for doing Iyun into Elokus, into meditating on Hashem and how Hashem works in the world. And in the first couple paragraphs of chapter 3, he really draws parallels between these two processes, the Iyun that we learnt about, and now the Iyun into Elokus. And why would he do this? Like, why did he have to take us through the whole of chapter 1 and 2, which was very long? Why not just go straight and teach us about Iyun of Elokus? And I think it's because all of us can literally understand chapter 1 and 2. We've all experienced that on some level. We've all studied something and had that flash of insight, which is like that chokhmah, that, the lightning flash where you go like, wow, where did that come from? And we've all studied something in depth and gone through that process. So it's something very tangible. And even though maybe it didn't always feel so tangible when we were learning chapter 1, but really it's something we can understand. So it becomes a dugma, it becomes an example for something that is going to be a little bit more abstract for us, that we're not necessarily familiar with, which is meditating on Hashem and knowing how to do that. So now in chapter 3, he's making this transition for us and showing us, okay, Yichuda Tata'ah, which is the unification of, okay, these are two new terms that we're given. We're given, there's a hidden world and there's a revealed world, and they correspond to Bina and Chokhmah. And now we learn about Yichuda Tata'ah, which is how, and I'm mixing terms here a little bit, the Bina process is unified with Chokhmah. That's in a sense, what Yichuda Tata'ah is. And then Yichuda Ila'ah is the unification of Chokhmah, of that higher level of understanding godliness, is unified with the Matzil, with the source, the actual source. And he takes those two experiences, the Yichuda Tata'ah and the Yichuda Ila'ah, and shows us how we learned about that in chapter 1, how the process of Bina, of meditating on the letters of the teacher, the words of the teacher, is like meditating when you're meditating on Hashem, you meditate on the otiot, on the letters that Hashem spoke, the Devar Hashem, that enliven the physical world, the revealed world. And that's the beginning of this meditation, this Iyun into Elokus. So it's parallel to what we've already learned. Like we know that process, but now we're doing it in our Iyun into Elokus. And then you go to Yichuda Ila'ah, and there we begin to talk about in the Dugma is, connecting to the Oimek HaMusag and Hamakas Hadas and shifting from Bina into Chokhmah, and then connecting to Maimek, which is, the Das, the knowing that comes beyond Chokhmah. So that's the Yichuda Ila'ah, where you're connecting the more subtle sensing that you have of the higher levels of Atzilut with the Matzil, with Hashem himself. Now, I don't know if that was more confusing than it was clarifying, but that's basically what we learned last week when we did, the two columns of, maybe I should just show it to you just as a reminder. Let me just see where I have that. Okay. Let me just show you what we did there. That was chapter 2. Oh, wait a minute. Paragraph 2, chapter 3, paragraph 2. And this was the summary. Okay. So I'm going to just share my screen and we'll see what I've been talking about. So here, even if you weren't following exactly, this was the basic idea that we had the mashal. This becomes our mashal. It's actually not a mashal. Mashal is the wrong word. It's actually dugma. Maybe I should change that. Dugma means it's an example. It's not so much a mashal. The Iyun into the concept, which is in Bina, corresponds to the Hisbonnenus in Elokus and Yichuda Tata'ah, the lower level of connecting the physical world with its source in Devar Hashem. And then we went deeper where you have the Yichuda Ila'ah and how that corresponds to what we were learning about the Iyun into the concept. So basically what he's telling us is, okay, there's this process that I'm going to be talking about of unifying, of doing Iyun into Elokus, but I just want you to know that you already know the basic structure of how this works. It's everything that you learned in chapter 1, and now we're just going to show how it's a parallel kind of method when you really meditating on Hashem. All right, Mila, over to you. Mila, you muted.
Okay, great. So how are we going to be doing it?
What? We can, I think that we can continue on to paragraph 4.
Okay, great.
Like we said, we'll do that. Maybe perhaps what we can do actually, I see that paragraph 4 is really an expansion of paragraph 3. So maybe we'll go back afterwards and do the worksheet on paragraph 3.
Okay, great. Okay, so paragraph 4 is interestingly, really puts everything in begins to put everything in a perspective. And again, first few paragraphs are introductory. They really kind of, he warms us up, and slowly he makes sure that we let me just close the door here. Make sure that we actually are finally able to actually implement what we have learned in the first and second chapter. And B'ezrat Hashem, slowly, we will start understanding why is he leading us this particular way. Because the goal is for us to really start already applying the skills that we learned in chapter 1 about the Hisbonnenus in general, and what happens when we engage in Hisbonnenus. This is more or less what the first and second chapter we were discussing, and also actually applied in our day-to-day Hisbonnenus practice, something that I'm sure we could start doing now. So let's go into the first chapter, the fourth paragraph in chapter 3, and yeah, you're able to see my my screen. Should I make it a little bigger?
Yeah, bigger would be better.
Maybe this that's the biggest, more or less what I could do.
That's
Okay,
a bit big. Okay.
it's good. It's too big. Did I make it too big?
No, okay. Can everybody see it, or it's a little bit too big?
Good. Okay, I'm gonna do it like that. Okay, ach lahavim b'tosefes biur kol pirtei hamadreges ba'avodas eloki, ech shekulam nimshachim al yidei ha'iyun nikra hisbonnenus. Right. However, to understand more deeply all the details, all the detailed levels in avodas of Hashem, and how they're all drawn from and through Iyun, which is called Hisbonnenus. Right. How do we actually could do such a thing, right? How can we see that in our avodah everything is pretty much drawn down through Hisbonnenus? Okay. Now, nagdim levayer hasoga achas elokis asher hasoga hi hu gam ken tachlis kol ha'adam la'amig dato v'lechaven libo hetev b'hasoga zois. Okay, v'hasoga b'bchinas mamalakol almin dafka. Okay, let us first preface with an explanations of one particular hasaga elokis, right? So now, as we could see already here, we are narrowing down to understanding Hashem, which is itself the ultimate purpose of man, to deepen his das, right, his conscious awareness, and direct his heart properly in this comprehension. And this is the hasaga of the level of mamalakol almin, right, which is divine energy that fills the world specifically. Right? So he specifically and deliberately wants us to start with mamalakol almin. Why? For through this comprehension, a revelation of Elokus is drawn into one's neshama, and nefesh hativis, his natural soul, in the mode of or pnimi. What's or pnimi is internalized light, and not merely in the mode of makif, which is encompassing light. And this is very, very essential, because ultimately the whole goal is to draw down Hashem, right? The awareness of Hashem, but pnimius. And therefore, we're going to start with mamalakol almin. What's mamalakol almin? Is the light of Hashem that goes into pnimius, right? So, pnimi to pnimi. We don't want to go into, a whole new exciting adventure, then come out of it, and when we're frying our eggs, being confused, where's Hashem, right? We want that if I'm focusing on mamala, which is pnimi's light, right? There's a light of Hashem that actually creates, right? So that will have an effect, a pnimi effect on me. It's just very, very logical conclusion, right? Ukmo hasaga the sov of kol almin shalot tuchel level b'chinas pnimis reg b'chinas yidiyah v'argasha derech roimimus v'aflo bilvat. In a contrast, right, to the comprehension of sov kol almin. Let's say somebody is one just to have a flight, right, just to have a high, and go and discuss very, very deep Kabbalistic and divine energy ideas that surround all the world. What will happen? This cannot enter the inner faculties, but only in the form of knowledge and sensing, okay, in a mode of exaltation and wonder, right? Which is hafla, right? And reimemus, right? We all of a sudden understand, like, wow, how thing is so removed from us, not how close it is from us, but how it's removed from us. And we are in a state of wonder, like, wow, right? Does that really help us when I fry my eggs to see that the eggs are godly energy? No, right? It just gives me that sensing, right? That's hafla, that wow, of some amazing, wondrous idea, right? But it will not help me in my day-to-day practical details of my life, not necessarily, right? Although it's much higher light, but at the same time, it just goes right above my head. Okay, but it's not like that in the case of mamale. Okay, moreover, in such a case, when we actually only go to this very high level classes where we completely, in a state of wonder, in such a case, one has not truly fulfilled the mitzvah of knowing Hashem. Okay, because knowing Hashem is not for our godly soul, it's actually for our animal soul, right? For our natural soul. And a person is to the mitzvah of knowing Hashem unless the revelation of Elokus becomes absorbed inwardly in his neshama and natural soul, as explained above. When did he explain that to us? When we learning second chapter, right? The second chapter, the effect of Hisbonnenus, the effect of doing our part in Hisbonnenus is that we have a klita, right? That we have the level of tuvuna that becomes absorbed into our brain, right? And then in our heart. And that's when we fulfill the mitzvah of Yediyas Elokus, knowing of God, when it becomes part of us, part of our physicality. Rak ikara kavana ba'asoga de mamalehu sheyasik esha b'chinas mamale eina nivdal chas v'sholem in atzmis, right? The main intention of comprehending mamale is to grasp that the aspect of mamala is in no way, God forbid, separate from Atzmus. Right? And to be honest, this is, I think, what most of us struggle with, right? That's where our struggle is, that we might understand on emunah level, right? Or sense on emunah level, right? We can't really understand on emunah level, but we sense on emunah level, we feel, and all that beautiful things that is Hashem in the world. And there are times where we actually feel it in a very, very open way. But we struggle with the mamala, we struggle with the details of our life, right? We cannot connect all the dots. We see separation, right? We sense that, what could it be? How can I be connected with mamala and yet experience all the suffering that I'm enduring on my level, right? How can this be so separate from this? And we constantly see how mamala is separate from Atzmus of Hashem, right? Because if Hashem is everywhere and Hashem in essence is good, we should not experience no negativity, right? That's just how it goes. And yet we are experiencing a lot of negative things, and things seem to be very separate in our life. And how in the world they're all coming from Hashem? That's where our clash is, right? And we feel frustrated, and that's where we experience goals. So that's exactly what this type of Hisbonnenus remedies, is that when we do it properly, we will not see how Memale is separate from the Atzmus. Okay? Rakshe, Bechinas Atzmus Or Ein Sof, Gufa, Hu HaMemale. Okay, L'chol Oilamois, L'chol Echad V'Echad Bifrat. Rather, what we will start realizing, that it is the very Atzmus of Or Ein Sof himself who fills all the world, each one individually. Okay, and there's nothing in between, meaning there is no place that voids God, right? And when we see something that voids God, we see that there is a problem in our awareness, not in the fact that there's no God. And now we were just, before the class, we had a little chat with Naria, and Naria was sharing me all the hostages, right? And their experiences in the darkest, in the darkness of our world, right? What could be darker than, this Hamas tunnels, void of, sunlight and void of all that. And yet, interestingly, they all report that in the darkness, okay, when they were chained and, all this, horrible things I can't even repeat without actually crying, right? They actually experienced something phenomenal where there was this amazing revelation of light for them, okay? That's exactly where they felt closest with Hashem. And, as Naria reported, some of them actually miss those moments of closeness. Like, yeah, why would you ever miss, the dark tunnels of Hamas? But they're not missing the misery there. They're missing that in that misery, they were able to discover something so unique and deep. And why is it? Why in the world would they be able to discover this? Is because even in that misery, there is the essence of God. And that's exactly what they touched. Now, the good news is that we don't have to travel to the tunnels of Hamas to feel the closeness and touch the essence of Hashem, right? Well, some of us did have to travel there in order to touch it. Now, obviously, that's not the kavana. Kavana is through Hisbonnenus we could touch that reality as well. Okay, so that's already something we can further explore. And although he's the one who fills all the world, each one individually, okay, and nevertheless, there is absolutely no change in him whatsoever, God forbid, right? And this is something that no philosophers could ever comprehend. Something unique about Hashem. Okay, and v'zeu mitzvah Shema Yisrael, and this mitzvah, when we're able to bring this to our brain, to our seichel, to our mind, this is the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael. Okay, the hainu sheyavin v'yasik ech shehavaya elokeinu b'chinas Atzmus Or Ein Sof shelemala b'chinas tov v'mala. What is Shema Yisrael? The bottom line is meaning that one should understand and perceive, and this is definitely done with our physical brain, that Havaya Elokeinu, okay, the aspect of Atzmus Or Ein Sof, which transcends both Sof and Mamale. Okay, now Rag Shehu Makor Neshomas Yisrael Hu Havaya Echad, and that this Havaya Elokeinu, right, this is the aspect of Atzmus Or Ein Sof, which transcends both Sof and Mamale, is the very source of the Neshomas Yisrael. Okay, and that Havai, and this Havai is what? Meaning on all levels, there is absolutely no separation. Okay, there's absolutely no level in any of the creation, okay, that there is a separation. So why do we actually see separation? Is because of our lack of awareness. Okay, that's why we see the world separate. Okay, that's the whole beauty, we could say, of Hashem and his kol yachol, that he's able to create such a dependent creation as ours, okay, that requires constant pumping of chayus into us, okay, and nevertheless, we might feel so separate from Hashem. Like it's mind-boggling, right? We can't even do anything without constant presence and constant consciousness of Hashem, because Hashem is constantly creating us every single split second. Otherwise, we would just go into nothing. And nevertheless, with all that, we feel so separate and so disconnected. But it's our subjective perception. In reality, it's not like that, okay? V'hu inyan Yichuda Yisbarach ba'olam es elyonim nikra Yichuda Ila'ah. And this refers to his Yichud, okay, with the higher worlds, known as Yichuda Ila'ah, right? That essence is everywhere. V'hu hamityached ba'olam es hanivraim mi'ayin leyesh, v'al ze amar baruch Shem kivod malchus ha'olam v'ed. And he is the one who unites with created worlds that come into being mi'ayin leyesh, about which it says Baruch Shem kivod malchus ha'olam v'ed. Right? Blessed is the name of his glory, of his malchus, right, of his kingship forever and ever. And yet, he does not change at all, God forbid. Okay, there is in him no division, no gradation whatsoever. Okay, that's another interesting fact about Hashem, that despite his direct involvement with every single creation, to such an extent that that creation wouldn't even form or exist on any level whatsoever, unless of the direct, conscious, sustained creation from Hashem. That's called Hashgacha Pratis. Okay? And nevertheless, he absolutely not changing. And there's absolutely no divisions in his essence whatsoever. Okay, Rag bechinas Atzmus Or Ein Sof. Okay, for his essence alone, that's the only thing that exists. Okay, he and none besides him. Hu soivev v'hu hamamale ba'olam es elyonim v'tachtonim b'ashwa gemura. He is the soivev and he is the mamale in all upper and lower worlds completely equally. All right, it's not people make that mistake and nobody blames them. People think that's actually religions that think that way. Okay, there's a whole religions that believe that God is more in spiritual world than he is in physical world. There's a belief like that. That's absolutely not the Jewish belief. Okay, we know that he fills the world. He is the place where the world is in the first place. That's why we call Hashem Hamakom, place. And besides the fact, there's absolutely no difference where Hashem is more, okay, in Atzilus or in this world. Well, somebody might argue, why isn't I more aware of Hashem when I'm in the state of Atzilus versus I'm in the state of Asiya? Yeah, for sure, because there's more revelation of Hashem. But the essence of Hashem is equally in all the worlds. There's absolutely no difference in the essence of Hashem. In the revelation, yes, that's 100%. And the more Hashem revealed, the more we are aware of him, right? That's just a very logical conclusion, right? When I'm experiencing a miracle in my life, that means Hashem is more revealed to me. That's why I'm experiencing the miracle, right? But Hashem chooses to stay away, okay? And he wants us to find him. So he's playing hiding or seek, okay? And sometimes by his chesed, he reveals himself. Okay, that's, and obviously we all have experienced them in one way or the other. But that's not to say that Hashem is more somewhere, is more in some ways less. The revelation, yes, that's pertaining to revelation of Hashem, yeah, because when there is a creation and there's created being, and then there is a creator, and the creator reveals himself to the creation. Okay, so therefore now creation becomes aware of the creator. Okay, but sometimes Hashem completely conceals himself, right? Like, for example, in the story of Esther, right, where the whole miracle occurred in such a concealed way. Okay. Okay. Rag bechinas Atzmus levada ve'in bilte. Right. V'hu ha'soiva v'hu ha'memale ba'olam es elyonim v'tachtonim b'ashwa gemura. V'hine zeu mitzvahs hasaga be'inyan zeh shemerames b'parsha Shema. And behold, this is the mitzvah of understanding hinted in the verse of Shema Yisrael. Yeah, because the understanding begins, the mitzvah of Shema begins with understanding. We cannot come into an awareness of Hashem if we do not actually physically understand with our brains. Right? And as we know, back to chapter 1, right? After the Omek HaMusag, we are coming into the state of Das, which is what? With Vehahakara, right? And the level of recognition or awareness, in this thing, right? Until one reaches the depth of the Re'iyas HaSechel, which is what? Which is the mind's inner vision, as will be explained later, right? So what actually happens after we do all the intense Iyun, okay, into understanding how Hashem actually fills in the world, okay, and how he actually encompasses all the worlds, okay, Bashva, right? Similarly, meaning equally. Okay, Hi Havayu Elokim, right? Because we have actually two verses. One, Shema Yisrael, Havayu Elokeinu Havayu Echad, and the other one is Vayadat, and you should know. What should I know? The word is Yidia, right? Das. Ki Havayu Elokim. It sounds to be the same, right? Because that Havaya is our Elokim. And you shall know that Havaya is Elokim. So it's the same thing. One uses the verse Shema, and the other one uses the word Das. Okay, and that's after Shema, you come to Das. Okay, v'yadua the Shem Havaya nikra Shem Ha'etzem, shemoir al Atzmus Or Ein Sof. Right, so Shem Havaya, it is all known that the name Havaya is called Shem Ha'etzem. Right, in Hebrew, Shem Ha'etzem is a noun. Okay, Havaya is noun. Okay, it's not a verb, it's a noun. And Shem Ha'etzem, that's signifying, right, the Atzmus Or Ein Sof. Shem Elokim Milishon Koach. And Shem Elokim is Koach, is the power. Right? So now the name Elokim comes from the word koach, power, referring to the active force within creation, which is koach hapoel b'nif'al. And this is something that it's a key word that we must remember because this is a concept on its own, koach hapoel b'nif'al. And B'ezrat Hashem, in the 3rd chapter, we're going to explore how Hashem creates the world in 3 ways. One as a light, as an or, the other one as chayut, as a life force, and the third as koach, as a power. Okay, and this going up, down, right? And that happens simultaneously. So in our quest to understand how Hashem creates the world, we're going to be exploring few mashalim. And each mashal is going to touch upon a certain detail of these 3. It's either going to be in the form of a light, then in a form of chayus, of a life force, and in a form of a koach, of a power, right? And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be layering all these mashalim, one on top of each other, okay? And that will provide us the depth of understanding of how is that Hashem creates the world, as all 3 of them simultaneously, right? But because for the lack of such a mashal, right, nobody could have a mashal of Hashem, okay? The nimshal of Hashem. This is just, way too big. Hashem creates different objects through which we could internalize and understand how it is he is the one who is doing it. Okay, so we're gonna, put that on Hashem. And what is that? What's koach hapoel b'nifal? That's how memala works as a power, which is the essence of the creator. The poel, this is the essence of the creator. Poel is I'm the activator, I'm the cause of it. Okay, is imprinted and revealed within his creation, the nif'al, right? The created being, meaning a poel b'nif'al, right? It's the power of creation. The creation bears within it the energy of the source. Okay, and the aspect is called memala kol almin. Havaya hu elokim kulachat. And from this, we will understand how Havaya and Elokim are completely one. So now, this is not just the names of Hashem. These are divine energies that actually create, right? Havaya is through which it's the name of Hashem through which Hashem reveals himself. And Elohim is also through which Hashem reveals himself, right? And when we observe the two, we see a discrepancy. We see a separation. So the whole point of Hisbonnenus to see the oneness of it, although they are so different of how they're being expressed, right? Is basically to take away the shield to see inside. Okay, what's behind it? What's the energy behind it? And that's what we're going to be doing throughout our whole entire life, right? Is to uncover what's behind. What is the energy behind, right? For example, when we read words, we understand that the words have meaning behind them, right? That's why we read books. Otherwise, like, why would somebody read books? Can you imagine a child learns how to read? So then he understands mechanics of reading. But then he reads for pleasure. In the beginning, he reads to do what the teacher told him to do, okay? Assignments. And then after reading assignments, he starts reading for pleasure because he understands that the words are only there for a deeper message, right? There is something behind the words, the message of the word, right? And that's exactly what we're doing, right? We see the oisies, we see the letters, we see the creation that are created by letters of Hashem. And the whole point is to uncover Hashem behind it, right? That's easier said than done, but that's the whole purpose of man, is to uncover the divine energy behind things. And the whole concealment is for us to uncover. Then when we realize that the whole concealment is no longer a concealment, it's actually the revelation. Okay, but that's no longer going to conceal for us because we're going to see what's behind it. Okay. For the mamali is not separate from the essence, as explained above, and this is enough for understanding. Okay, so we're done with paragraph 4. It was quite a big klal, so we're like, whew, whoever was listening, that's great. And I guess if anybody has questions specifically pertaining to what we have just read, this is the best time to ask them. If there's anything that what we read was not clear or you didn't understand or there was a word that needs clarification. Good. Yeah, we all good?
Mila, can you just, I think it's quite difficult for people to ask questions if, without fully grasping it, because that's only when the questions come.
All right.
Can you just summarize what what was said there? Because it seemed to be quite a lot of repetition.
It
And
is.
obviously, but presumably it's not so repetitive. Otherwise, he doesn't repeat what he doesn't have to say.
Right. So obviously by now, everybody have noticed, especially when you're working directly with text, the style of Rabbi Hillel. Rabbi Hillel tells like this. He gives us a general idea, and then he makes another circle, yet widening a little bit. And then he makes, it seems a repetition, but it's really not. It just adds another detail, right? He doesn't just overwhelm a system, right? So he repeats, and then, he just repeats a little bit more, but he says the same thing, right? And then it repeats again. And that's, you'll see also happening by many ma'amarim, right? They'll begin and they'll be just saying again, the things that we already know, right? That Hashem is Nahavai, is not separate from Elohim and all that stuff, right? This has been repeated so much. And there's a reason why they're repeating it, because that's part of programming, right? You can't just say it once. Yeah, imagine like, the husband comes to a Rav and says, oh, my husband never expresses his feelings. He said, well, when we were by the chuppah, I told you that I love you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. That doesn't work like that, right? So Hashem said once, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. If anything changes, I'll let you know. It doesn't work like that. Right? We need to repeat it again and again and again and again so it sinks in. Okay, because we have part of us, right? That's our main conscious mind that may not necessarily be such a believer, right? That's our nefesh hativis. She wants just to run around and have fun in life and, whatever else, an animal would want to engage in. And all of a sudden you're telling it about God. She's like, God, who is the guy? Can I smell it? Can I taste it? Can I, see it? No. So the answer is no. So it's like, okay, forget about it. I want to work with Yesh. And you want to bring me into Ayin, into this like, invisible God and all that stuff. So we really need to have a compelling proposal to our Nefesh Bahamas so she could engage with us in this process of Hisbonnenus. So what did he add to answer to your question? He's going more into detail. First of all, he established that we begin with Mamale. We're going to live sober for a while.
So now, is that equivalent to Yichuda Tata'ah? When we talk
Exactly.
about
Yeah,
we talk
exactly.
about
So now he goes into details about what's Yichuda Tata'ah. Yichuda Tata'ah is Mamale, period. Right? Yichuda Tata'ah is a lower unity, meaning we're not questioning about whether the world exists or not. That's Yichuda Tata'ah. We're not questioning that. Okay? What we want to do is that, yeah, there is Yesh, there is the world, right? There is creation. The beginning point is that we're not going to overwhelm our Nefesh Bahamas, telling her that, you're questionable, you exist, you don't exist. There's Hashem, and Hashem is everywhere, and Od Milvadoi, and stuff like that. The Nefesh Bahamas is going to run away. It's going to become lazy. It's going to think it doesn't have time. It's going to think like, oh, forget about it. We'll do that tomorrow. And all the excuses, right? And we're all familiar with that when our body is not on the board. It's going to find every single excuse out there. After that, I'll post you the Nike commercial that I love very much. Okay. That's just add a little bit of humor to our process. Okay, so that's just what it is. Right? You're not going to get anywhere. Okay, you're not going to catch Nefesh Bahamas with your Chachma ideas. It's not happening. Unless it's a beautiful building, right, that she wants to have, that she wants to live in. then it's a different story. So now what do? You say, okay, the world exists. Right? There is a creation. Now I'm going to show you how every detail of your life actually connects to Hashem. Oh, why do I need to know it? Your life is going to be more pleasurable experience. Now you're experiencing disconnect. Okay, you're experiencing how, all aspects of your life are disconnected from one another and definitely disconnected from God. Since God is the ultimate pleasure, you're a pleasure-seeking being, I'm going to show you how every detail actually connects to God. Okay, so you are talking with your Nefesh Bahamas on her level. Okay, with her terms. You're taking Yesh and you're showing her that it's coming from Ayin. That's, she knows how to do very well because, yeah, Yesh, she's Yesh. So then there's equality there. So that's why he says that's very important. Why? Because not only that now she could relate to it, but it's also going to penetrate Bapnimius. Why is it going to penetrate Bapnimius? Because there's a relationship. I am Yesh. Okay, so I'm eating an apple, which is Yesh. Okay. So Yesh, there's going to be digestion happening. It's not going to fly over my head. It's not spiritual. We're not talking about spiritual thing here. What we are taking a physical object, okay, and we are revealing how this object, and we're tracing it all the way back, that it's coming from essence of Ein Sof. That's all. It's a beautiful work, by the way. Let us all engage in this. So it's like, forget about total unity of the world with created beings and the visions and all that. You're not there. Okay. So now, if anybody will skip this stage, they're going to go into delusion and to psychiatric unit. That's where the whole psychedelics get into place. I'm sorry. This is my, okay, because they don't want to do the work. They want to get into vision and the body's not ready. What do you think happens to these people after they do psychedelics? They're either going to get addicted. That's only what they're going to be wanting to do because you don't need to do the work. Okay. Or they could go cuckoo. That's it. Very good. Yeah, Nechama, we need grounding. Exactly. This is a very grounding experience because taking physical objects. Now, is that a very tedious? For sure. Because you have so many details, right? You have a cup and you have a relationship, and then you have, I don't know, all the objects around you. You have so many details. Okay, I see the vibration is rising. I'm yawning. That's what it is, right? By the way, that's all what we do, right? When the vibration in the Zoom room heightens, I see you all paying attention, right? Everybody starts yawning. That's good. That's a release. Okay, so that's that's what's happening. So he is introducing here. He's like, okay, guys, we're not doing anything fancy. Okay? We're going to be doing basics. Okay. Okay. So that's that. Then he said that because we want to bring it into our pnimi. This is very essential. And we are truly fulfilling the knowledge of God. Knowledge of God is not when we don't know, because the state of wonder, because we don't exist. That's what we're wondering. Like you're like, oh, hafla. Hafla is when you stop existing, you only could see. Okay? So then there's no you who is fulfilling a mitzvah. You dissolved in godliness. There's no you fulfilling the mitzvah. There is no mitzvah and the one who fulfills the mitzvah. It's all became one. It's smashed. It's enmeshed. There is no boundary there. Okay, so the mitzvah is when there is a boundary. Is me, and then there's Hashem. Okay, and I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of knowing Hashem. Okay, that's the thing. Now, that's he established. Then he established that there is a yichud, right? He have never made that claim before, right? The claim is that why this is so essential to do that is because truly what we're going to see that when you open Memale, right, the person might think like, well, it's not a lofty level. I want to do higher. He says, don't worry. What is going to happen when you're going to engage with Mamale? Who is inside Mamale? Hawaii is inside Mamale. Sovev, right? Okay, who is inside Sovev? The Atzmus. Because you don't need to worry who you're engaging with. I mean, do you really care that the king is going to come out in his pajamas or 10 clothing, attire? Why would you care? You're discussing, you're engaging with the king. I mean, you don't want to see king naked, you know? It's like, not at this point. It's like, okay, so he comes out with his clothing, and this is the argument that Alter Rebbe brings. It's like, so who cares? You're dealing with a king. Okay, so once you realize that you're dealing with a king, okay, so then the levushim become irrelevant. They become bottle to the king. Okay, so the world, the mamale, okay, how they coming down, these are all bottle, but becomes bottle to the king, but only when you have that awareness. Right now, we're just saying the words. Okay, that's the beginning. Okay, these are the ideas. But when you do proper Hisbonnenus, all of a sudden, now you don't need to do it in every single creation. You're going to go nuts. Can you imagine a person just sits, okay, my machberes, a pin, my shetel, my scarf, my, what's it called? I don't know, my dress, my earrings, my husband, my kids, my coffee cup. Yeah? Imagine a person will be sitting and doing his Hisbonnenus. First of all, he would need multiple lives. That's just number one, right? And then you cannot go to work. You cannot do anything in the world. All what you're going to be doing is yichudim, yichudim, yichudim. Okay, maybe, that's why we're going to have Chaim Nitzchim, right? It's going to take a long time. It's just going to be eternity. But the goal is not like that. Once your brain becomes trained, I don't know, I'm just throwing a number out there. I don't know, 700 times you're going to do it. At one point, you no longer need to do it because you're going to be already operating on a different level. Okay, because your eyes automatically, it's like reading. When we first read, you see this with kids, and they get letter to letter, havara to havara, and this 5-year-old, they just read, and the whole attention is in this process, right? They sweat, It cannot do anything. You look at the 5-year-old who knows how to read, the whole focus is there. It's like laser focus, right? To the point that nobody can talk next to them. Okay, they get distracted, right? And okay, after that stage, right? Not every letter forever they're gonna read like this. Because if they would, nobody would be reading, okay, by now. If this is the amount of effort, every single person would have there's going to be no books written, right? You go to Barnes and Nobles, you see the amount of books is written there, and every day, I'm sure there are thousands of books published. Is because reading at one point becomes like nothing. You open the page, and with fast reading techniques, you could literally scan few sentences at a time. You could just go fast, 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 because you're looking for the knowledge, right? So now what happened to my reading? What happened to my letters? What happened to my syllabus? Because you move on a different level of operation. That happens with Hisbonnenus as well. No, not every single detail of creation would have to be scanned back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? Eventually, we become so habituated because this is what our brain does. Our brain wants to habituate things, wants to do things faster, wants to put us on autopilot. And that's amazing. So can you imagine your Hisbonnenus process is going to be part of the autopilot? But right now it's not. Okay, so at least we know that eventually we're going to get there. So once it moves into the autopilot, that's when we are able to reach Yichuda Ila'ah. Right? That's when we're able to upgrade a little bit. But we're not there yet because we're still reading with syllabuses and we're still recognizing letters. Okay? But eventually we're going to get there. Okay, so that Yichuda Ila'ah comes from the previous paragraph, comes in a little bit automatic way. It just hits us, right? It's like imagine you putting you have a blueprint of a building, okay, and you're trying to see how the building is going to look like. Okay, so you're going to be putting it, piece by piece. This line means this, and slowly in your brain you are building a structure, okay, and all of a sudden it just hits you. Like imagine a musician opens the music, right, and he reads through the notes. In the beginning, he doesn't know what the music sounds like. Has no concept. You know what I'm talking about? You know how musicians, they just open the music sheets. They never heard this music before. It's not a famous music. Somebody wrote it, and they're gonna whatever the story is, right? And then they just look. Ah, and they start singing. And slowly, they hear the music in the head, right? And they could actually sing it. So that process, this is where we at. We are yet looking at the music sheet and we don't hear the music yet. Okay, that's the building process that happens in us. But once we hear the music, we're not going to go back, right? We're just going to sing because we know it already. So that's what Yichuda Tata'ah versus Yichuda Ila'ah. Yichuda Tata'ah is piece by piece, music, tone by tone. We're putting it together. Once it's put together, we are experiencing a totally new reality. Okay? Then it's the vision. Then it's the actual music is being heard. Okay, that's a different, just different level. That's what it is. So the same thing is here. We're putting detail to detail until we start seeing things, okay, with our mind's eye. And this is what he says over there in the end, right? And all that right? After that, he comes into the level of das and into awareness, in that thing. Right? Until he reaches the depth of the mind's inner vision. So once your mind's inner vision puts the full picture together, then you see it. You're not going to go back into the detail. Well, sometimes we do go back into the detail because let's say we missed something. So then you do go back into blueprint. The blueprint always will remain there as a point of reference. Okay. But that's pretty much what it is. This is what this paragraph. Again, it's not a complete thought. He is Bezrat Hashem in paragraph 5 is now gonna go into Bina. He says, you know what? Okay, now it's all general until paragraph 5. Paragraph 5 is like, okay, now we're going into Bina. Because why are we going into Bina? Because that's what we have. Okay. We have Bina. That's it. We don't have Das yet in that thing, right? We don't even know what he wants to say. It says, in the Bina and Memale, this is what will happen. Okay, we're going to go into that.
So, Mila, if you're talking about, this process of what I understand, you're saying that you habituate yourself to doing this process of slowly understanding that the physical world is, like bitul to really comes from something much greater. And eventually that becomes your operating system. It's almost like you change your operating system. So my question is, when does he start to give us something to meditate on in that way, that we can begin to change our operating system? Or can you say that even up until now, you can do Hisbonnenus on everything like chapter 1, chapter 2, and start
Good,
to...
I'll tell you. Chapter 1, chapter 2 are the thesis of the whole Shari Yichud, right? They give us like it's a blueprint. This is what we're going to be using. And you see, he constantly comes back to chapter information, chapter 1 and chapter 2. Now, what we will do is that in this chapter, okay, that's where the true Hisbonnenus will start happening. Why? Because he's going to give us mashalim. Okay, he's going to give us now. He's coming to it, right? He's going to give us 4 mashalim in how the world operates. The way Hashem created the world, that memale comes from Malchus of Atzilus down. Okay, Savev is the world of Atzilus. Okay, Atzmus is above Atzilus. Okay, that's just what it is. Okay, so Yichuda Ila'ah takes place in Atzilus, and Yichuda Tata'ah is from the light of Malchus of Atzilus, how she creates the world. Okay, so these are the 2 aspects. Now, what will happen? Now, they are qualitatively, the light is different. Okay, it's very different. So now, in the Yichuda Tata'ah, he's going to give us 4 mashalim, and Yichuda Ila'ah is going to give us 5 mashalim. Okay, and now before he giving the mashalim, he's going to tell us what to do with the mashalim. On the level of orech of bina, on the level of rochav of bina, and on the level of omek of bina. Okay, so he's laying that foundation very, 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 very thoroughly. Okay, so he doesn't want to overwhelm us. He's telling us all these details and says, okay, now we're going to take into bina. Okay, now we understand that we're going to do memale. We understand the importance of memale, right? Because person might think like, oh, come on, what are you doing, memale? Come on, go to Samech Vav and learn about, I don't know, something like that, right? No. We're going to do basics, right? We're going to do baby steps. Why baby steps are important? Because then you actually learn how to walk instead of just talking about flying. Okay? So learn about walking first. So that's, okay, you're actually going to walk. So this is the goal. So then he's going to say, okay, now take Bina and we're going to work with real mashalim. So the work is going to begin now. Okay, we would need to compare the mashalim. We need to see how they are similar and how they are different and why we bring this mashalim and how they layer on top of each other so we can understand the quality of Hashem's light, how he's able to create. Because this is the wonder. How is he able to create? What is it that he creates? Something that could feel completely separate from it. And yet he's the one who's right now, as we talk, we would completely vanish into nothingness if Hashem intentionally wouldn't be creating every single one of us right now. And it happens all the time. And he's not getting bored out of it, right? He's not rolling his eyes and all these things, right? It's like, just, I'm doing it. I'm committed. okay, for, for 5,000, 800, 700, what's this? 86 years. Okay, he does it every single moment, non-stop. Okay, he did Mabul and he regretted, right? Just like, okay, we're not doing it. And
So,
we are in Parshas Lech Lecha. This is the fun Parsha. The Rebbe says it. It's a very happy Parsha. There's so many things happening. And also happened in Nun Beis, the famous Sicha at Parshas Lech Lecha, when the Rebbe talks about Avodas HaMoichin. This is why we're all here.
so Mila, just to clarify, how do you understand mimale? Is it only you're talking about something when you say mimale, you're talking about the physical world, or you're talking about something spiritual in the physical world? Like,
All of them. Everything is Memale. From Malchus of Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, these are all Memale.
so Bria is very high. It's a
For
very,
sure.
very abstract level.
Why? It's a thought. It's the world of thoughts. That's how I look at it.
Okay.
Conscious thoughts, not subconscious. These are conscious thoughts that are flowing. This is our Bria. Bria is Bina.
So Bria is Bina, and then Yetzira is the world of emotion, more, and Asiya is the world of action.
Yeah.
So we're talking about how all of those,
It's Machshava, Dibur, and Masse. That is what it is. Bina is Machshava, Dibur, and Masse. These are the levushim that we more or less conscious about. This is what it is.
I always thought of the levushim as being, their worlds, and there's the levushim. The levushim are separate. I mean, I guess they're expressions of it.
Yeah.
But etc., maybe that's not so relevant. Okay, so when we're talking about meditating on Mimale, we're talking about pretty much our conscious world, which consists of thoughts, of speech, and of physical reality, our actions, and Gashmiut itself, actual Gashmiut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And when we use the name Elokim, Elokim is referring to Mamale, like all of those levels.
Yeah. And
Um,
also Shem Adonai is in paragraph number 5 is going to talk about
is also
Adonai.
Mimale.
Yes, because that's Malchus, the name of Hashem, the way it refers to Malchus. It's when a little bit, maybe we could even say lower than Adonai, right? It's what's happening here. It's a reality. It's a subjective reality of the person. It's the hard floor of the mikvah. This is how I'm being expressed at the moment, whatever that is, right? It's the expression, the way we perceive it. It's even lower than Elohim, because Elohim is the way it's being created. Now, my perception is already even more subjective than the subjective reality of Elohim, right? It's like a golus of the golus. It's an inclusion, and now it's an inclusion of that. It's like it's the difference between Or and Ziv. We're going to talk about it, right? It's the difference between the light and the ray, or light of the sun and the ray of the sun, meaning the sun, for example, you have green windows, I have red windows, okay, or I have blue windows. Okay, your sun is going to be green, my sun is going to be blue.
Your
But
sunlight.
the ray of the sun is completely different. It's yellow, right?
Yeah.
But it's yellow because of the earth. We don't even know what's the original sun of the light, right? Sunlight is. Because of the atmosphere, it comes to us as yellow.
So Nechama's asking Hashem's four-letter name. What about it? It's the Yud K Vav K.
Right.
So
So Hashem four-letter name, it actually refers to two realities of Hashem. One is the way it's part of the Mamale. That's why we see Yud is the Atzilus, Hey is what do you call it? Bria, Vav is the 6 midas of Yetzira, and Hey Tata is, But then there's also Yud Vavke, a lot of times refers to the essence of Hashem. Right now, when we say Shema Yisrael Havaya Elokeinu Havaya Echad, we really mean, the Mamale. I'm sorry, the Soiviv. Yud Vavke as in the world of Soiviv. Okay? Because truly, Soiviv and Mamale are part of creation. One is Soiviv Kolamin and one is Mamale Kolamin. Right? For example, just giving you an example, there is a world of thoughts, right? Thoughts as potential of thoughts, whatever thoughts may be, that's Soiviv Kolamin. Right? And then there is actual thoughts that we are thinking. Okay? That's already Mamale. Yeah? Because we are talking about something concrete. I have a thought, oh, I better, let Naria take over and I'm going to go make myself a cup of coffee, right? I have a thought, for example, like this, right? So that's something concrete. But then I had a potential of thoughts that could have been whatever it could have been. So the same thing is with a speech, and the same thing is with there is a potential of things. That's soiviv. Okay, and then there is an actual speech, an actual thought, an actual deed. Okay, so that's how soiviv and mamala, they play together, that dance, right? So mamala, it's not like, an abandonment. Okay, I'm surrounding the world. What does surrounding means? Like they just sit like a layer around the earth? No, that means it's hidden. It's in a potential. Okay, once it becomes something actual, something concrete, so then it's pnimi. Like my brain has gazillion possibilities of what it's going to think about. But then after all, with all the possibilities, it's actually thinking about some things over and over and over and over, right? So that's soviv as a potential. And then there's a mamalet, something concrete that actually taking place. Okay.
Okay, one last question. I don't know if it's really so much on the topic, but when he was talking there also about the Shema and how all of these, different levels connect to the Shema. In paragraph 3, which we did it, before Tishrei, but we didn't go over it now. He goes in exact detail between Shema and these ideas and links it. But over here, he kind of repeats it a little bit. One of my questions is, when we say Havaya Elokeinu, we're not, Elokeinu in this context means, it's not saying Elokim. What's the difference?
Excellent question, Naria. It's a beautiful thing. You're right. It's a very beautiful observation, because v'yadata hayom v'shavot elevavecha ki havaya hu Elokim. Right? It's a general understanding that Elokim, it's truly Havaya. In Shema, it's a little bit different. It says Shema Yisrael Havaya Elokeinu Havaya Echad. There's so many mamarim written on it. It's mind-boggling. But the Frierdiker Rebbe says something very, very beautiful. There's a beautiful mimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe where he says why there's new added there in Shema. It's when a Jew truly what's Elokim? Elokim is Teva, is nature, right? Is the way Hashem expresses himself through the laws of nature. And Havaya, it's above nature, right? Because Havaya, there is no space, there is no time. Okay, what's nature? What defines nature? What defines nature? It's a time and space. Okay, now Havaya, it's above time and space. Okay, it's Haya, meaning all these, there's no time, there's no beginning, there's no end. It's all happening at the same time. Okay, there's no timeline. So what essentially we're saying is that we're saying Havaya is our Elokim. There's a qualitatively difference between the Jew and a non-Jew, because a non-Jew lives in a timeline. Okay, a Jew, his true essence is Havaya. His nature, the nature of a Jew, is the level of Havaya, where the rest of the creation has to follow the laws of nature. And as Yidden, we know we defy nature on so many levels, right? Why? Because our true self, even the way we are mislabish in the guf, okay, if you scratch the surface, is Havaya. And that's what we're proclaiming. Shema Yisrael, Havaya Elokeinu, Havaya Echad. Because truly, we could have just said Havaya Elokim, Havaya Echad. That's perfectly fine. Grammatically, it's perfectly fine. And with the idea, it flows, everything is beautiful. But that detail of Nun Vav, Havaya Elokeinu, the Frierdiker Rebbe says, is because our Teva is Havaya. And if a Jew only would know that this is our true reality, we would live on a totally different level. I mean, we can't even comprehend on what level we could have been. You would have all the money in the world. You would have absolutely no issues with transporting yourself, right? And it's mind-boggling. I mean, I know this lady, Mrs. Gansberg, what the Rebbe wrote to her. You know that I share this letter over and over. That we would be able, the Rebbe says, if we would really know our true nature, we would be able to cross the river on a handkerchief. I mean, just think about it. Like, and then I was really writing to women, Mrs. Gansberg. I mean, she was my dorm mother for quite a few years. I worked with her also as a. It's like he writes it to her. He's not writing. It's not like a letter to Reb Hillel Parcher. This like big famous chassid, and it's like it's ordinary people. The rabbis expect us to be on this this phenomenal letter. I'll share the letter again too. I mean, this is one of my, very, very, very favorite letters. Rebbe brings um, Yael, um, the prophet Yael, from Prophet Yael, phenomenal prophecy. And the weak one will say, "I am mighty," and where the person truly draws, the energy and the vitality, it's really, really phenomenal. But yeah, I guess that's where the golus is. A true golus, when we start believing in Elokim, is the end on its own. You cannot do this, you could do this needs more time, I have limitations. Well, Elokim is limitations, is a teva. And when we,
If that is our nature, Yud Kei Vav Kei is our nature. I mean, certainly you can point to the Jewish people as a people and say, it doesn't make sense. We lasted, with all the persecution, we still here. Eh, You can look and say, like 40% or something ridiculous is the number of Jewish people who win Nobel Prizes when we're really 0.1% of the population or something like that. Like you see the fact that we're not governed by nature, and yet I would say on an individual level, I guess I should just speak for myself. I don't necessarily experience myself like that. So in my life like that, I get very stuck in the limitations of things. So why is that? If that is embedded in us and we see it as a people, why on an individual level? I mean, the truth is, I can then say, no, I have seen it in my life. I've seen like crazy miracles in different ways. But, so do non-Jews, I'm sure, see, miraculous things or times when nature doesn't seem to be ruling their situation. So what is my question really is to say, if that is embedded in us, how come we have to do the Hisbonnenus in order to connect to it and uncover it? Mila.
I'm listening to you. No, I'll
So
tell you, when I hear you, I think we need to go back to our Kuntrasais Bibles class, because that's exactly, if this is our nature, right? Why in the world we are not so attuned with our nature, right? We have to say Shema so many times and all that. Because you see, Hashem is playing a joke on us, almost, where he's like, I'm going to give you something and I want you to discover that. Because the whole point is that when you come to that realization, right? It's like, imagine Hashem is going to give you a house and you're going to live into it. Okay. But imagine you yourself is going to start from the blueprint, to the actual building, to the, you know what I'm talking about? And then you're like this aha moment. Then, it's not a free bread.
bread of shame.
Bread of shame, yeah, lachma d'chsufa, right? It's not bread. So you actually worked for it. To whatever that extent is, and it feels very real. I mean, we are actually working. Who is not sweating over these details of, it's like, yeah, it's like, it's like intense. Yeah, I'm putting in. Oh, it actually has a limit. Did you know that it's only 1,000?
For the translation.
No, not translation. The letter. I wanted to find it. It's really beautiful letter. I mean, I want to share it here. Anybody wants to copy? Right? Rebbe wrote to Mrs. Gansberg this letter. It's a phenomenal thing, right? They were devoted Chassidim, Reb Itcha and Gittel Gansberg, right? They are the one who established, so many chadarim in Eretz Yisrael. They would come to a place, like a rural place, they would establish a cheder, find people to run it, and move to a different place. Establish a cheder, find people to run it, and move to a different place. This is like, they didn't even have a pleasure of, ripping the fruits of the labor, just establishing, giving it to somebody and moving to the next thing. And she was very disturbed by the fact that her husband was away and she was raising the family alone and all the difficulties that they're going through, those shlichus and all that. So the Rebbe wrote to her, as we stand following the Holocaust, we are on a threshold of Mashiach's arrival, and he awaits us to finish the task of our generation. Okay, it is therefore important upon every one of us to say to ourselves, as the pasuk states, the weak one shall say, I am mighty. With the proper resolve, one can reveal concealed strength, especially men and women who were raised in a Hasidic home. They merely have to make a commitment, and they immediately will realize this inner strength is. May we merit to experience somewhat of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings that every Yid has the power to cross the river with a handkerchief, if they would only truly believe. And we know the stories with Baba Sali, where he just would, travel, would walk on water with no device. It actually happened a few times where he had to save somebody or something like that. They would just walk on water. Now, how in the world can you do this? Because in the essence, right, the teachings of Kabbalah and Chassidus, what they truly teach is our true essence, who we are as a Jew. Now, we process it through our brain that puts a label, possible, not possible, based on our emunah, right? Imagine when we teach our kids early on that this is our nature, right? The Kabbalists probably raised differently in different households, right? With different sets of rules. Okay, so the programming of their children is done on a different level. Okay. And I know, like, for example, in Abu Chatzera families, like, they wouldn't allow a Gentile to hold a baby ever. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what's the big deal about it? Are they really so tumidic? Come on, like, that's too much, right? That's if you look at it. But no, because anybody who holds the baby, right, projects their experience of the world. Okay. And if so, like, why would you want to have guy who sees the world from a particular perspective. Why? Because that's how Hashem created him or her, right? Why would you want them to hold the baby that you're trying to kind of, be supernatural, so called, right? So, I mean, it's like, I guess for ordinary people, it's not a big deal, but tzaddikim, whenever they would want to raise a tzaddik, on a level that they could perform miracles, they had to be very careful what kind of influences and what kind of mindsets are actually influencing this child while he is still in a state of being a katan, being a small child, being influenced. I guess afterwards, and it's a whole.
So, Mila, look, we have like 35 minutes left. Should we go out into breakout rooms and let people just read this paragraph?
And do the worksheet.
Well, there isn't a worksheet for paragraph 4. There's only a worksheet for paragraph 3.
So I guess maybe they could do that, no?
Could read paragraph 3 and fill out the worksheet.
And 4, yeah.
And 4. So the worksheet is really more based in paragraph 3, or there is some overlap. Miriam, you have a question? I guess you just froze. So I'm going to I'll put it in the chat, the worksheet. I can put it in the chat here.
So let's do, I guess, 2 groups.
Yeah, okay.
So this way, yeah, those who don't join.
So there's a worksheet for paragraph 3, which goes through the Shema, which is useful because it's repeated in paragraph 4 pretty much. So in this group, what I suggest you do is read through paragraph 3 with reference to the worksheet. See if you can figure it out. I posted it here on the chat and also on the WhatsApp group. And it's also in the Google Drive. It's, okay. Miriam, you're trying to unmute yourself. Yeah. Okay.
So we're going to open all the rooms. There's 3 in each room.
So you're basically going to be looking at paragraph 3, which is the one prior to what we did now. But it deals with similar topics. Nachama and Shoshana, you're not joining? Nachama, you're usually joining. Usually join. Do you need Mila to send it to you again? Nachama, you there? Okay. Mila, do you want to take, oh, here we should stop recording.
Are we on?
Yeah, and so we're back from the groups. And
Okay.
do you want to give a little bit quick feedback? How was that?
I thought it was very nice.
What did you do?
We were discussing Elohim, Elokeinu, how we bring it from potential into reality, how we live it.
Okay, good. Did any of you manage to do the worksheet, or you were just really reading the text?
I didn't
Somebody else speak up.
really know what to do with the sheet. I see 2 tables, but I wasn't sure what I don't know. There was no clear instruction for me, so I wasn't too sure what to do with it.
So what were you doing?
I was with Sylvia.
Sylvia.
Severe. Okay. And what were you doing?
Like Sylvia was saying, we were discussing Elokeinu, Elohim,
So I
and
think we
other.
we
Yeah.
ended on what Mila gave over, the difference between Elohim and Elokeinu, and how to bring it down into your everyday life, and also realizing that we have to start with the concrete. We have to start on with the mimale, what's on our level, even though that we knew that that Atzmus, that the high level of Shem is there, but we have to be where we are and work our way.
Okay, great. So were you working with the text, or you were more just discussing what you'd experienced during the class?
I would say discussing. I'm the
Okay.
one who doesn't have the text, so.
Yeah, and I don't, was the worksheet something in addition to the chart that had the two sides with the
No,
Shema?
no, look, if you had looked at paragraph 3, if you were reading paragraph 3, and if anybody wants to do it for their homework, if you look at paragraph 3, you'll understand what that worksheet is. Because in paragraph 3, he tells you the meaning of all the different parts of Shema Yisrael. And so it's just then rearranging it in 2 tables so that you can see how they correspond to each other.
So it means filling in the left side, which was mostly blank?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you read paragraph 3, which we didn't go over, you'll see that it'll help you to really clarify the meaning of Shema Yisrael, which is what he describes.
Mhm.
He, tells us that Shema is Shem, Ayin, and then what Yisrael means, and what Baruch Shem means. Some of it is also in paragraph 4 that we did today. But if you want to transform the way that you understand the Shema, it's useful to try and fill in that chart. We didn't do it in real time because we felt that we really want to move on. And if you get it, it's great. It'll really impact the way you understand Shema. But we really wanted to just kind of start moving forward so that we can get to the place where we're really doing the Hisbonnenus into the different mashalim. Okay. Miriam, are you going? Okay. All right. So we are at the top of the hour. Does anybody want to say anything before we close down?
Just thank you very much for opening up new avenues of thought and connection.
Thank you, Tzivia.
Wonderful. Thank you. All the best. It was a pleasure having you here, and successful rest of the week.
Amen.
And next week we come back and really start the Hisbonnenus after all this time. It's exciting.
I think you say that every week.
No, so now
Well, it happens on a level.
basically it's a different level of text that is going to challenge us to do Iyun, to really do a contemplation. Yeah, I feel like we've done a lot, but this is officially, he's giving us the Iyun into Elokus and how to think about how Hashem is Mimale in the world, because what are we supposed to think about? So he's going to give us some guidance how to think about that. So that's very exciting, I think.
Yeah.
All right. See you next week, Bezrat Hashem.
Okay, thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.
All the best, Shavua Tov. Thank you again.
Thank you. Shavua Tov.